The Boys Season 4 has wrapped up, and 6 projects in, the fan base is more divided than ever. Some thinking the franchise is what it once hated, and others still excited for the final season. So here's my ranking of all 6 seasons of the Boys franchise from the worst to the best. And before we get into it, let me know your ranking for all 6 seasons in the comments down below. Both don't waste any more time, let's get right into it. Starting it off in last place is the Boys Diabolical. Something has to be in last place. I actually still really like this season, but it has to be in last place because it's also so drastically different than all of the other seasons of television in this list. I will say though, out of all of the spin-offs and extra seasons in this universe, this one feels the most like a cash grab just because it doesn't follow the direct storyline and necessarily add anything to the ongoing universe. Now in 5th place for me is The Boys Season 1. This doesn't mean this season is bad. The bar is just so high for this show at this point, and Season 1 is still absolutely amazing. This is the season to start it all. It brilliantly introduces us to Huey, Butcher, Homelander, all of the 7, all of the boys. I think the main storyline that I think carries this season though is Starlight's storyline, as she kind of is our human eye that gets put up into the 7, while Huey is just our human eye that stays on the human level. I know a lot of people didn't like season 4, and I'll get into that later, but for season 1 specifically, I feel like where season 1 lacks in regards to other seasons is just that I feel like every other season just builds upon what season 1 gave us. Again, it's not a bad season at all. This probably has some of the most individual episodic character work, and that's just because that's what's necessary when you're introducing such a grand and massive world. I also think this one obviously feels like it has the least amount of budget. It feels the most concise, and it feels the most personal, which works in some ways, in other ways it doesn't. In 4th place for me is The Boys Season 2. I do go back and forth between 4th and 3rd place, but Season 2 is in 4th place for me because I actually love the addition of Stormfront, and I think that is one of the best like character catalysts of the entire series and this whole franchise in general. And that's because it's just a batshit crazy one at that. Aside from Stormfront though, I think that implication on Homelander is really what riles up the self-conscious aspect of that character in seasons 3 and 4. And further on character work, I think aside from my 2nd place, this is the season that does the most in terms of working as a catalyst for the future of the series. A lot of this series is obviously politically relevant, but it's more so doing its own thing in terms of building out this world rather than directly building allegories to our real world, which I do enjoy because I love the allegories to our real world and I actually find them hilarious. But at a certain point, you have to individualize your world and make the stakes within the world, and they do that with these unique characters that they implement, and all of these ideas that tie back to like Nazi stuff. I just wasn't really expecting it to be that on the nose, but I personally really enjoyed it. That was a great form of comedy for me in this series. Season 2 also some of the best moments of the entire show, just like batshit crazy, like the whale stuff, the gutter sequence. There's just so many moments and so many iconic things happening, but kind of like season 4 of The Boys, I feel like yes, season 2 was great on its own, which I know that might be a hot take for season 4. We'll get into that later. But after watching season 3, I felt like season 2 was such a great setup for season 3 and why season 3 flourishes as much as it does. With that being said, in 3rd place for me is actually Gen V season 1. I do think this is a pretty big hot take. I'm not sure there's many fans of Gen V out there, but this is also kind of where I get into why I think the Boys franchise expansion actually works really well. So starting it off with Gen V itself, I think this is a brilliant way to expand the world. Now, in The Boys season 4, we didn't get a super big impact from Gen V season 1, at least as much as I thought, but I was kind of happy about that because it made Gen V feel a lot more independent than I initially thought it was going to be.
Do you have any plans for a true crossover between The Boys and Gen V?
Full team up? No. If you want to watch The Boys, you don't want to watch this other show, don't watch it. If you want to watch Gen V and don't watch The Boys, which I actually know a lot of people that do that, great. You know, like they're each their own story. They each have their own reason for being. They each need to be good enough to exist without the other one existing.
But before getting into the franchise overall, I have to mention, I think the character work in Gen V is pretty brilliant. I was going into my freshman year of college when Gen V season 1 came out. So taking this concept of The Boys, which I watched all throughout high school, and putting that into a college environment, which I was currently experiencing, that was an amazing way to tie together everything going on at my point in life. And so I think that's why I love this series so much. Marie is a brilliant protagonist. I think Kate is such a great antagonist as well. And the overall arc of these college kids just being like a friend group and then shit happening to them is super interesting to me. I mentioned this on the internet before, but I strictly do believe that The Boys isn't what it's parodying if it's still making good content and good spin-offs. My biggest problem with Gen V is the pace. I think the middle of the series definitely starts to slow down, and I think it works for certain characters like Sam and this general like forest storyline that was going on, because that is more of an eerie thing. We are getting a Gen V season 2. Now for this, I am very, very excited. Again, we got little bits and pieces of tie-ins from Gen V in The Boys season 4. For me, I really enjoyed Gen V. So this to me isn't them becoming what they were making fun of with like VOT Plus and their whole slate of new movies and TV shows. That to me, they're not making fun of themselves at this point. In second place for me is The Boys season 4. This is the newly released season, which the internet has actually been very divided on. Now, personally, I do stand in the fact that I think it's actually a great, pretty much amazing season of TV, kind of in a setup way though. I personally don't mind when the penultimate season of a series is just building up to the final season, which is pretty much what this entire season of The Boys was. And a lot of people didn't really like that we were focusing on so many different storylines and so many different things that were happening. We're just cutting through the episodes this season. I actually really enjoyed that. It felt like we were able to kind of grasp at straws for every single individual character while also moving some level of an overall story forward. For me, I actually don't mind all of that. One other show that came out this year that's similar to this like penultimate feeling of the Boys season 4 is The Bear season 3, where a lot of people complain that the story didn't move forward. There's no spoilers to even tell. Obviously, there's twists and turns in The Boys more than The Bear, and it's a completely different genre of show. But I really like seasons that are more slow and meditative when you've had very quick-paced seasons with a lot of action, a lot of crazy moments and scenes. I wouldn't even say season 4 is like the most gory of the entire franchise or the most insane with this twists and the most story progression. It doesn't have all of that. But in my opinion, the moments that we get, they feel way more thematically rich. And I wasn't ever really watching The Boys for all of like the superhero flying stuff. And you guys know, I love superhero stuff. I love comic book movies. This show has always been more of a dramedy to me rather than a superhero show. And so I like when they start focusing on the thematic elements rather than just making it super flashy just because it's the end of the show. You can check out my full review for The Boys season 4, but I really did enjoy this season. It has its flaws for sure, but I liked it. But in first place is The Boys season 3. I would be surprised if the final season of the series even topped this season, because season 3 just has so many amazing elements. I was thinking back to it, and there are so many amazing episodes. Pretty much episodes 3 to the finale of season 3 are absolutely amazing. And it's some of the most iconic episodes of the entire series. And not only does it do all of the gruesome and crazy things, it also has a lot of thematic richness that I didn't really grasp onto until I rewatched the season. I pretty much have no flaws with season 3 of The Boys. It's one of my favorite seasons of television ever. And after the 3-episode premiere of season 4 of The Boys, I was hopeful that season 3 would get overtaken by season 4. But as season 4 went on, they took a really different approach, which again, I don't not like it. It's just very different than what season 3 was doing, and I just slightly prefer the route that season 3 took in terms of keeping tight writing, but also introducing elements, whether it is halfway through the season or not, they're introducing these massive catalytic elements that really impact the entirety of the show, like Soldier Boy. I really do think Soldier Boy is the defining factor between season 3 of The Boys and the rest of the seasons, because the inclusion of Jensen Ackles is just top tier. I also think it's different because even new characters that were introduced in season 4 or season 2 or season 1, they didn't necessarily feel like they interacted with everyone. But Soldier Boy was an anomaly in that way because he was in the middle of the Boys and the Seven. He was a soup that had connections to Homelander, but he was mainly on the side of the Boys. And that's also why the finale of season 3 ended up being so grand and so amazing and so awesome. It's because Soldier Boy felt like this massive moment in this series, and I don't think even season 5 can top that. I mean, I love every single season of this series. There isn't a single bad season in my opinion. Some are just better than the rest. But guys, I also have my ranking of all 6 seasons in the Boys franchise. Let me know your ranking in the comments down below. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more reviews or reactions. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.